Hey everyone, welcome to this special session with Henrik Axelsen. I hope I pronounced it well.
That's good, yeah.
So this will be a really interesting session with a workshop. We'll include a workshop. And well, first of all, welcome for joining this special session and Web3 plus AI. So the floor is yours, Henrik.
Okay, thank you guys. So I can see you, Inacy, and then Stefan and Simon. I can see other, and then Fireflies. Is that the recorder or what is that? Hi, Simon.
That's also
Stefan,
recorded.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll just start. I have no
Simon
clue
and
how
Stefan
many.
For now.
I have no clue how many we're going to join, so I'll just. So I put in some time. Let's see if we can. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. All right, cool. So this is we put in 2 hours, but I think we'll be. I hope we can do it in 1.5 hours. Only if we have interesting conversations. We basically have just blocked an additional time for that. I had this agenda. Oops, I changed the time, so no longer is I'm in Central European time. So here it's just, I didn't know how many were coming, so I thought we'd just have a chance for people to introduce themselves, those who want to introduce themselves, and then present some work in progress, research where I've been working with a gaming outfit. We wanted to create a network state called the Republic of Reality. The company is called Reality Plus, so it's not like a crazy new thing, but it was based on Balaji Srinivasan's book, The Network State. And then I'll take you through all that and some cool results where we've used GPT to basically help us automate moderation and culture and contribution, or getting there. And then I've been, since this is a gaming outfit with 250,000 wallets, but not a lot of, much less people in the community, I would like to now see if I can expand this to a DAO context. This is just a gaming community. It's not organized, so the only governance is through moderator efforts. But I'll talk more about that. But now I would like to see if we can actually deploy this in the DAO context, so that we have a workshop. That's basically where I would like to have you guys help me see where do you see the obvious potential and challenges in using. Let's call it AI. I mean, we can really, I guess, have a long time discussing whether GPT or large language model or sort of large modular models are intelligent. But let's, for the sake of this exercise, just call them AI. So just quickly, I guess I could start for those who are okay with introducing yourselves. I'm currently doing a PhD in blockchain and AI for complex business processes. And I've been focusing very much on blockchain or distributed technology and how to build a bridge between DeFi and traditional finance. But obviously with GPT coming around as open access since I guess late November last year, I've been sort of totally enthusiastic about the potential intersection of the two. So if I could just ask you guys who are joining, if it's okay, maybe Simon, would you give a brief intro? Or if you don't, then it's also okay, but yes.
Yes, quickly, because so I'm focusing, I'm engineering, software development engineer, and so focusing on Web3 developments, so both at protocols and distributed application levels. And so I'm mostly learning, about artificial intelligence. So, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I can see Peter has joined. Peter, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Just to check.
Yeah.
Yeah, short introduction. I'm here in two capabilities. One, I'm a teacher at the University of Applied Science in Utrecht, teaching Web3 and DAOs, but also have a company of my own. We have a platform on which communities can establish their DAO. And we also are experimenting how to connect AI with DAOs. And at the moment, we are building a kind of feature or functionality in which you can use AI or ChatGPT as a kind of consultant. You can ask ChatGPT something. We have a proposal, and ChatGPT as a lawyer or as a business consultant, do you have recommendations about this proposal? So that's short introduction.
Cool, thank you. And Stepan, if I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm not a at all, okay. But oh, sorry, that's different Stepan.
Okay, sorry, Steve.
Yeah,
okay, I thought, okay. Well, okay, Stepan Gershuni, you first, yeah?
All right. Yeah, so hello, everyone. My name is Stepan, and I'm currently, so I've been working on decentralized identity and decentralized reputation and self-sovereign identity for the past like 5-6 years in startups and some larger companies. Became very interested in AI about a year ago, and specifically large language models. So currently building some experiments with GPT and like for education or storytelling. But one area I'm particularly excited about is how to apply large language models to decision-making process and how to make it so that we can get a progressive automation, kind of like progressive decentralization, meaning that we start with AI being an assistant. Maybe it helps you to scan through forum or Discord, but then progressively delegate more and more stuff so that it doesn't actually, like we can figure where it breaks. Yeah. Okay. Excited to be here.
Cool. And the other Stepan or Steve?
Yeah, sorry, that I didn't realize my name on here is Steve. But yeah, Steve's my nickname. Stefan is actually my birth name. Okay. I'm not really, but I'm behind a lot, like helping a lot of projects in Give Galaxy, mainly on Twitter. So I kind of live on Twitter. So I'm here mainly to learn from all you smart guys. And yeah, that's kind of it really for this.
Cool. And Marco.
Yeah, hello guys. Hey, nice to see you all. Well, I guess some of you already know from previous calls. My name is Marco. I'm a head of design of General Magic and executive steward as well. We're basically a dev shop, Web3 space, building products. But also we work a lot with DAOs and governance models. And so I'm here today actually to see what you guys have are working on, and maybe like what is the intersection of AI and existing governance models, and how can we connect these two. So yeah, I guess same like Steve, here to learn. Cool. So yeah, excited to hear more about Henrik, what you're doing actually.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. So I'll just share my screen again and jump into it. So you can all see my screen again, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna use a. Yanesi, can you load the link into the chat? Just make sure that, because we're gonna use a Miro board in about half an hour. So just so you are, if you're not already on Miro, you've had it set up, so you can join it in half an hour's time. Is that okay, Yanesi? Or shall I load it over?
I already shared it.
You already shared it. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, cool. So, so what's this project? So this is a little bit, as I mentioned, I've been a partner at a Big Four for many years, and so I guess I'm now what they call a corporate dropout, not a university dropout going into corporate, but the other way around. So I was an angel investor, and then I started investing in blockchain firms, and I thought this is really cool. And then I thought I need to know more. So here I am 2 years later been doing a PhD in the sort of nerdy end of computer science in Copenhagen University in the programming languages department. So for the past 6 months, I've worked with a gaming outfit called Reality Plus. I met them in the Singapore FinTech Festival. And they have what they do is they make gaming experiences in the metaverse. They made a private fork of Ethereum back in 2016 and have done NFT-based gaming since then, and are now working for mega brands to basically bring big brands into a gamification experience using metaverse. But it's actually device agnostic, so it's also mobile, it's also Web2. But what the way they have been growing, so they have about 250,000 wallets now. They do all BBC brands. The most famous one is Doctor Who, which is the world's longest running science fiction series, which is a trading card, NFT card game. And they as BBC is now have joined the Disney Plus to stream Doctor Who globally, and some other experiences I'll come back to. They actually expect to grow the number of wallets to 5 million over the next 12 months. And so we had a conversation after seeing Balaji present his thoughts on the network state that and given the founder wants to decentralize it in some fashion, we thought, well, maybe you want to think about how you decentralize this. How can you actually, I mean, if you're used to having like 500 chats per day and you grow to 50,000 chats, that's not going to work. And the brands that you work with are going to be terribly upset because you're going to screw up their reputation. And then I mentioned the case of CityDAO, which you may or may not be familiar with. This is a DAO. I think they're buying land in Wyoming, and you can then buy citizenship. And Vitalik Buterin bought a citizenship back in, was it September or something last year, and tweeted that he did. And suddenly they had 50,000 new joiners coming in and completely swamped the DAO's moderator setup. So they were unable to do anything and had to close down for quite a long time to restart it. So that was sort of, okay, you really have to have some infrastructure. And what about culture? What's the role of culture here? Because they also want to make distinguish or differentiate themselves from the likes of Axie Infinity, to have a more sort of balanced contribution model than play to earn, which is highly addictive and creates already many cases of techno stress and addictive gaming, which is not really socially, ethically acceptable in the founders' views. Anyway, and I come from the DAO perspective, said, okay, this is actually interesting because I've been researching and trying to define what means sufficiently decentralized in the context of being regulated. And you're obviously well familiar with Gary Gensler and Bill Hyman's speech back from 2018 on that, and also now with Micah coming into application, the new regulation on markets and crypto assets in Europe. There is it's going to be institutionalized, if I can use that word. If you are sufficiently decentralized, you can evade regulation. If you are not, then you will have to comply with the regulation. So all the financial supervisory authorities in the 27 member states of the EU are currently figuring out how to define sufficiently decentralized. I've written a research paper. There's a link there at the bottom. If you're interested, it's been quite welcome in many fora. It's basically just a sort of an advanced, I don't know if it's advanced. It's both off-chain and on-chain, looking at decentralization using the Nakamoto coefficient, thinking about collusion and majority abuse. Anyway, so that's where I'm coming from. So the motivation here was then that's these new blockchain business models in the mix. Maybe I do it like this. Maybe is this better for you? You can see it better. Maybe it is.
Yes, that's
okay.
better. Also,
right,
Henrik, there's a question. Could participants get the presentation slide later?
Yeah. Yes, okay. Yes, sure. Yeah. So, well, I mean, you're recording this, I guess, as well, so it'll be there as well. So yes, for sure. But anyway, in these new blockchain-based business models in metaverses, I say metaverses because there's many. In the case of this guy, this outfit is Decentraland and Sandbox that are sort of the key metaverses they're moving into. But gaming is just sort of like everybody sees gaming models in the metaverse becoming bigger than the entire entertainment industry by 2030. I think Citibank expects this market to be between 8 and 13 trillion, so it's huge. And the most sort of successful model is something called play to earn. And obviously the benefit of that you all know from DAOs, because you have used NFTs so to get real property with immediate market relevance, and you have access to marketplaces directly in a DeFi context. So basically, I think the metaverse and the gaming industry is just bringing the thoughts from DeFi and crypto into the gaming space much more aggressively than for example, banks are looking at DeFi. Gaming seems to just do it. Anyway, so that's what's happening. And the risks here, as I mentioned, are highly addictive. There's several research papers from psychiatrists and psychologists already that this dominance of extrinsic motivation, and you're probably familiar with that, some of you that have worked in the token engineering space for a while with the intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. But the extrinsic, this highly sort of money-focused reward mechanisms have really negative consequences. And I think the most of the play-to-earn models, you actually get paid for being online. So this means that people have to stay online for like 16 hours a day to just be able to compete at that level they're at. So the whole thing here was we need to rethink how we introduce gaming if we want to be more sort of ethical and understanding the consequences for our people. The guy I'm working with here, he has this idea. He wants to create 100,000 new jobs over the next 5 years in the metaverse. So that, okay, great, let's do that. So this outfit is called Reality Plus. It's a UK-based gaming outfit. They made, as I mentioned, Doctor Who. They also have Thunderbirds for ITV and some other ones. And then they have Pro Cycling, which is like the Tour de France, Italy, Spain, all the big tours on cycling. And they also now have FIFA. And I think all the 26 brands of BBC. So it's really sort of aggressively moving from a commercial perspective. And then so they're sitting at the center of this, creating metaverse experience and marketverse experience on and off chain, on different blockchains, and basically trying to become sort of, I guess, an aggregator of everything, including fiat and crypto. They see their users spending up to 27 times more on gaming than in traditional platforms. So, if you're not, can you put on mute? There's somebody with a lot of noise in the background. Thank you. Cool. So they want to create a fully fledged ecosystem across metaverses, and then, but they were like struggling because they're only like 50 people. And I think they're actually 70 people now. But if they are successful according to their plan, they're going to be seriously challenged with managing 5 million people and basically aligning themselves to that sort of hyper growth. So the idea, we said, well, let's see what's the role of culture in growth? Because everybody talks about DAOs being inefficient, bottom up, great place to be, but it's not really sort of too much negative thinking from sort of traditional organizational theories around it. I personally think they're pretty cool, but I do agree there's quite a lot of noise if it's not properly moderated, and a lot of inefficiency in people debating a lot. And this is also the case here. So here's challenges basically outlined here. Going from 250 to 5 million wallets, understanding who are actually the customers and who are stakeholders and co-creators in this metaverse economy, and how can you spot them so that you can effectively onboard those that matter. And this is a fraction of the wallets, because a lot of the wallets seem to be connected just because if there's a new card deck being issued, they have what they call flippers. Which are people that go in, they open the pack, they flip it and sell it on the marketplace in a hope of having some rare NFT card that they can then sell. And then they go away until there's an announcement of another new card deck, and then they come back in. So there's a lot of actors are not really meaningful from a community perspective, but those that are extremely valuable in the sense of both building the community, but also from a commercial perspective in this case. So he was looking for this. How do I scale and doing this without breaking the buck? How can I be smart in moderating? And how can I, seeing that the stable coins, there is an in-game currency utility token, but they will also have on and off ramping, so they will be regulated. And given the brands they're working with, there's already sort of a default consideration that we might as well regulate ourselves as if we are regulated, because our customers and stakeholders will expect us to manage as best practice, so we might as well set ourselves up. And one of the things, if you get regulated, then you will be supervised by a supervisory authority, and they will look at culture as an internal control in the terms of, are you taking excessive risk, etc. If you're familiar with how banking supervision works, that's basically a big thing in traditional finance. So we might as well understand how to talk to a regulator once we become regulated also on this. And then get a balanced incentive model so we manage the unintended consequences of the new business model, so we do not get addiction as sort of a thing. And so we created a new contribution model, which I'll take you through how that works. And then overall reduce key person risk through decentralization. And how do we then put this into a DAO or meta DAO construct? We were actually on a mission with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Singapore. So we thought, oh, let's get an NFT passport. But I mean, the Bilagi's thoughts about gaining diplomatic recognition is, I think, a bit flawed from a sort of geopolitical perspective. You earn the right to be recognized. You don't just claim it. So as you'll know from Scotland trying to get out of the UK, or what is it in Spain, you have in the Balkans, there's been quite a lot of attempts to try to gain recognition internationally by the global community. But it takes two to tango, as they say. So we dropped the sort of network state and aspirations and think more of a meta DAO construct, where each of the games might be a DAO, and then there's sort of a common moral mission across the DAOs, which is around these things with a balanced contribution and proper behavior and fair co-creation. And then I was also inspired by, so some DAOs are perhaps more of a sort of a help desk for the community. Like if you have a purely transactional business model, I think there was been done an ethnographic analysis of some of the DeFi exchanges or decentralized exchanges, and they seem to have not a very sort of healthy culture in their DAOs. It's much more sort of just a help desk. It's a question and answer thing. There's not really community building as such. And I thought there's different DAOs. Some are really intrinsically motivated, and then I was inspired by the Batman Begins quote: "It's not who you are underneath, it's what you do that defines you." So still thinking about that, and then basically saying, can we, based on what you do, spot who you are and what it is that defines you, which I'll show you that we could in this case. Even if you're pseudonymous or anonymous, at least we can have a good idea of why you're here and how we can do something better by knowing each other. Cultural science is really important here. This is not ethnography, as you know from token engineering. Surface governance surface with Eli Rennie, Kelsey Nabin, and Michael Sagam, especially. This is more like Potts and Hartley written a book about it in 2014, where it's evolutionary. Culture, in this case of hypergrowth, evolves a little bit. I think maybe Darwin and survival of the fittest. Cultures compete, and I guess the next big war, World War III, will be metaverse against metaverse. Maybe, I don't know, but in the sort of context of cultures are unique, and there is a winning culture versus a losing culture. When you see a winning culture, you immediately know that this is a successful culture, and you also see cultures that are unsuccessful. We can recognize that as humans. But the basic concept here is, in cultural science perspective, that groups of people, they build cultural practices to form tribes, so that their sort of physical well-being is also mentally protected through coordination, cooperation, language, shared identity, and human identity as such. So all this basically boils down to if you have culture, culture exists from knowledge, and knowledge creates innovation, and innovation creates economic systems. That's the sort of thinking in very short, and I'm really making it much too short. It's a big topic that deserves more, but it's really cool if you. So the idea was, okay, how will the culture of this decentralized community evolve, and how can we sustain it if it goes through hypergrowth? So the way we did this was, this is really, I mean, it's a mix of analytics and what we call design science research. Design science research is it's an academic discipline in information systems. It's very much what's the problem, okay, what are the objectives and requirements that can solve the problem, build a prototype, a systems artifact, test it and validate it, and fine tune it, and then launch it. This is so think of a model. In this case, we're building large language models or large modular models. And in the case here, it's generative pre-trained transformer models like called GPT that you're very familiar with from ChatGPT. And then provide a roadmap here to navigate the challenges. That was sort of the project we've been going through. I was expecting to have a postdoc help me develop this, but he decided to join a startup. So we're a bit left to saying, okay, I'm not a deep large language model expert. So we thought, okay, what do we do? Oh, well, we have GPT. Let's see if we can use that one. And that would actually fit very well with an execution of the business plan, because this team doesn't really have a lot of data scientists. They have a CTO and a couple of people that are clever, but they're sort of stressed on everything. So building a large language model is no small task. It's, as you probably read, quite big, a couple $100 million to build, I guess, or to just train GPT. With a big team of data scientists. So it's, but increasingly they become open source. We can come back to that. That's actually why I think they will also be able to do some, they will have a presence in DAOs, even if you can say relying on OpenAI's API for access to a large language model would, in the context of DeFi, probably could be considered a very centralized attack vector. And if they shut off our governance, that's unacceptable. So, but it's an excellent way of starting up, and then you can always see and learn, and then you can, and I think Llama, Mesa's model was leaked in March, and there are now several very good open source models available. And for the purpose of the stuff we're talking about here, this is probably what deep computational experts would call very shallow modeling, the stuff we're doing using GPT. But it is impressive how a GPT can be used for managing stuff like we're going to talk about here. So we had this challenge. What are we going to do? Are we going to build our own model? That's great. Then we have complete control. It's low cost, low latency inference, but we need a lot of data to do it, and also hardware. And if you have seen NVIDIA, the GPU manufacturer that is basically dominant in this space, with tailor-made chips to model large language, or to support large language models in production, you have to be a very big client to even get access to NVIDIA, and have to have a very big budget. So it's not really for DAOs. So we thought, okay, this is not where we're going to start. Let's just see if we can do something else. Then we thought, do we have data? Then we can use what they call a few-shot learning, fine-tuning approach. And if you don't have data, then there's something called a zero-shot modeling. If you're familiar with ChatGPT, that's when you ask it something, you basically, if you don't give any data except ask a prompt, that's zero-shot. Then it will, based on what it already knows about human language, it will to see if it can understand what it is you're asking, and it will give you a response which may be correct or not correct. If you have a couple of data points, you'll probably already know that you should prompt ChatGPT using those data points, because it will really help make the answer much more accurate and better. But this is there's a lot of evolution in the model space now on zero-shot and few-shot learning. And I think there was a paper from the Google team or Stanford or something that said that for every data point you have in few-shot learning, it actually is equivalent to 100 data points that you don't have. So if you have 3, then you have 300 using a large language model. So there's a huge leverage in training sets. And you can also then use zero-shot modeling to create data where you don't have it. So, and I'll take you through how we've done it here, which was a fascinating experience, great interaction with GPT on that one. Sorry, is this, I'm just babbling along. Is this okay? If you have questions, can you just raise your hand or interrupt, because I tend to just talk if I don't hear anybody. If this is too difficult or too easy, please let me know. Anybody have any?
Just following along. Super interesting. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right. Otherwise, please shout. I'm used to being interrupted and like to be interrupted. So if you have anything, just shout. Cool. Okay. So we will then. I think Yanesi set out a pre-read. This was a blog from a guy called Steve Wolfram, who's a theoretical theoretical physics, a guy who got his PhD from Caltech, as 20-year-old, very clever guy. He's been trying to understand what it is ChatGPT does and why it's really good at it. And it's sort of like maybe an hour read. It's really cool. If you have not had a chance to read it, please do read it. If you have, then you'll know that I guess at the sort of fundamental level, what a generative pre-trained transformer model does as a large language model or large modular language model using transformer techniques is it encodes and decodes. It basically trained on let's say just whatever I think petabytes, trillions of words that it has been scrolled through. You've probably seen the Reddit and Stack Exchange open strikes now. Suddenly they found out over at Reddit that they've been basically provided training to OpenAI and I guess other firms without getting paid for it. And suddenly we were finding out that the data we have is actually really, really valuable. But the GPT basically, at a sort of a fundamental level, it just predicts the next word in a sentence based on its experience of having read an enormous amount of sentences. So if you have here, the model says the best thing about its AI is its ability to, and then they've been scrolling through down here a data set and whatever it's been trained on. Okay. The most likely next word in that sentence is learn with 4.5%. The next one is predict 3.5%, or make 3.2, or 3.1, or do. And then so basically what it does, it constructs sentences based on statistical way of what have I seen before, having seen an enormous amount of sentences. So the best thing of AI is its ability to learn from experience. And then it gets harder. It starts getting really sort of problematic if you run it without what people call hallucination, which is a strange word suggesting that it is a human you're talking to. Let's call it fabrication, because it's statistically to modify the model for chat. Apparently, it seems that the best way to do that is by introducing randomness. So it doesn't always pick the highest probability, but maybe stochastically with these percentage predictabilities, choose among them. So I think the standard setting for ChatGPT is 0.8, and 0 means no stochastic randomness in the selection of the next word. You just have to take the highest rank, which at 0 temperature. At 1.0, everything is stochastic, and I think it's the setting for standard default setting for ChatGPT is 0.8. So that's good for chatting apparently. And we should not spend time on the settings of temperature, but just so you know, But what happens is if you keep it going, it gets really boring very fast at a temperature of 0, because then it says the best thing about AI's ability to learn from experience. It's not just a matter of learning from experience, it's learning from the world around you. The AI is a very good example of this. It's a very good example of how to use AI to improve your life. It's a very good example of how to use AI to improve your life. The AI is a very good example of how to improve your life. It just goes on and it gets really, really boring very, very fast if you don't have randomness introduced. The researchers at OpenAI found out. So what they have done is basically set the temperature above 0 degrees, and then it basically chooses from this tree. This is based on all the trillions of sentences it's read from the scraping of the internet, everything. It chooses randomly with the frequency that is mentioned over here. So learn or predict or make or understand or be or do or solve or adapt, etc., etc., etc. So you get it. That's also, if you've tried ChatGPT and asked it the same question twice, you'll notice that it does not give you the same answer. It is selecting randomly from this distribution of probabilities. Now, if you take this guy, Steve Wolfram, is really fascinating. Read the blog and see the YouTube. There's a 4-hour video where Lex Friedman is interviewing him as well on what is it actually that's happening here. And potentially what they've done over at OpenAI is by training a model with a billion dimensional models. I guess humans can maybe manage 10 dimensional things like what we got. We got depth and width and height and temperature and smell and visuals and I guess, I don't know, speed, motion, whatever, maybe 10 different dimensions we can see things. And there's somebody who says, who can see this transcript? I don't know, recording is on. I don't know what that is. No. Anyway, but what Wolfram suggests is that by accident, I guess OpenAI have caught up where Aristotle stopped 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, whatever it was, on the concept of logic and semantics. So maybe it has, because it's so complicated and so big, and a human language construct is between, I don't know, 200,000 and 600,000 words, which is peanuts when you have a trillion dimensions to look at a problem that is so small in its substance. And we think it's actually very fascinating the way language puts us together from a cultural perspective. It has maybe seen that there is an overall structure on how humans create languages, and that's why it's actually so good at this. It's fascinating sort of metaphysical thinking that Steve Wolfram is discussing. At least I think it's really cool. So read it and see his YouTube if you're interested in this. It's mind-boggling where this is going to go, and it's going to be really fun. Okay, so rapid development framework. What we did was basically there's a concept called distillation, where you like if you go to school, you have a teacher and then there's some students that learn something. That's the concept. It's called distillation. You use a big model to train a small model. So in this case, we said, okay, we're going to use GPT 3.5. Maybe GPT-4 for zero-shot learning because it's better, but it's not generally available. And if you subscribe to OpenAI, you know you can prompt 25 prompts in 3 hours, which is not really good for production. But GPT 3.5 is a very strong model as well for this purpose. But so we use a big model to train a smaller model eventually. And then we use the API to call and classify labels. So we generate data sets where we don't have it, or we use the data set we have from chats, and then we fine-tune models, and then we basically create a game X message database based on the Discord chats, and then that's how it works here. And eventually this then feeds to, there's a little bigger one. The community server gives us the data. It goes into this moderation community client. This is technical, but overall it's basically just a way of processing the data. We then make an API call with a prompt formatted message over to OpenAI's models that we train. So we trained here, in this case, an intent model to identify. This is the biggest problem they have with all these people coming in, because out of this 250,000 wallets that are connected, we use the Doctor Who Worlds Apart game as a pilot for this. So there's 75,000 wallets connected to the NFT marketplace, but there's only 3,000 participants in the Discord chat, which is the sort of where things are happening in this space. So apparently a lot of people are just connected with the wallet because they bought an NFT and then they park it on the wallet, and eventually maybe it gets valuable, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, or maybe they trade someday. So a lot of passive investors in this space, but also casual gamers that don't really game a lot, but there are some among these that are really dedicated. And actually, after we scraped the entire Discord community with 65,000 messages, we found that there was 1,129 active users, and then we tried to figure out what is their intention. I'll get back to that in a second. Second, moderation. We cannot have toxic language here. You're familiar with that from your own Discord, but how can we automate the moderation effort better? OpenAI supplies a moderation model. Can we use that? I'll show you that we couldn't. And then how we train for moderation of toxic behavior, and then contribution model. How can we make a contribution model? If you're familiar with SourceCred, it's a little bit like that, but I think much more simple here, because we basically just try to clone the founder team's visions about what constitutes ethically correct gaming, if such a thing exists, where you have a contribution model that you cannot just get success by gaming. So imagine a game from level 1 to level 20. In this gaming set, the NFTs that we've created a contribution model, so you can't go past level 8, for example, but without doing stuff that has nothing to do with gaming. You need to help other people in the community, onboard people, or come with a contribution that improves the game or something. Then you will get awards, in this case from the lead moderator, who's called the Fat Viking, and his airdrops are called Fat Fingers. So you'll get fat fingers in the form of exciting, very rare NFTs if you do good stuff that can then become valuable. And then, of course, all this goes out to the contribution model. So you have parameter estimation like you have in SourceCred. And then basically it runs into a process where we have who are the personas, what onboarding packs do they need. So we have either cryptos, those are people that are dedicated traders or investors. Then we have fans, those are the people that play the game of Doctor Who. All of the rest are called casuals. And then there's a moderation sentiment model, and then there's proof of contribution, which gives you NFTs. And then basically you can get rich by gaming and doing good stuff and get NFTs that can basically pay your salary. And all this, of course, then is settled on a blockchain, in this case, a private fork of Ethereum. But I believe it's moving over to other chains as we speak. Anyway, that's the model, the architecture we've done and built. So, questions? Okay, I'll continue then. First model, intent model. Now, so what we did was the moderators were really struggling in figuring out, okay, we know we have people here, and so some of them are card players, dedicated fans playing the game because they love it, and others are crypto investors or traders looking for NFTs, but they won't just upfront declare who they are. But then if you've been in this for a while, the founder suggested he could actually spot people based on the first 10 messages. He would know with a very high degree of certainty why people are here. So that's interesting. Let's see if we can clone your brain. So when you say they are crypto or NFT traders, what is it in the chats? Give me some examples of chats that suggest that these are traders or investors. And then on fans, give me some examples that suggest they're fans, and everybody else are casual. They're interesting, but they're not really interesting from a commercial perspective, which this is a commercial case, so it's not a DAO. So what we did was we then tried to work out some chats that the founder said that he used to be able to spot them. And then we created a data set. They gave us 30 of real chat messages that were crypto chats, and 30 that were fan chats, and then 30 that were casual. We then used that to go through OpenAI's model to create basically load a number of chats and say, we need to find messages that look like this. Can you find more of them? And then we got more messages. And in the case of, then we tested them with the humans, because the idea was basically we want to do this fast. So we said, rather than have you go through the whole data set, 60,000 chats is a lot. So we'll just basically use a model to identify them, and then you can validate them. It's much faster to validate than to generate something. Then I think we got then 463 chats out, which is a big data set. And we then ran that through basically a traditional machine learning model experience, where we then train the model, in this case, OpenAI's DaVinci, which is the 3.5 the biggest one. And then we've started fine-tuning and validating it with out-of-sample data set, and then we got a position in the 90% range. So 9 out of 10 cases where we could accurately predict, based on looking at one chat, are you a crypto, or are you a fan, or are you a casual? Which is really, really good if you scale from 500 chats per day to 50,000 chats per day with a small moderated team. That means you can basically scale with a factor 10 with the same amount of people you have, because the machine will help you automate and direct who the right people are. In this case, they were focusing on the crypto and the fan people, or chats, which is another part here. These are chats. They are not people or personas. They are avatars, of course, with a pseudonymous ID. So we made a rule saying that if there is a unique ID that has more than 3 crypto messages, we will classify that as a crypto enthusiast persona. Similarly, if there's a unique ID with 3 or more messages classified as fan, then they are fan personas. And then users who are neither crypto nor casual are then, fans, they are casuals. So doing that, we then ran through the 59,000 messages that were not bot or empty messages, suggested there was 1,121 active users in the 10 channels. And of those, 343 unique IDs were crypto, 243 fans, and 716 casuals. So, okay, taking it back to where we came from, 75,000 wallets are in the Doctor Who Worlds Apart game. 3,000 of those are on the Discord. 1,121 of those are active, but actually only 343 plus 243. So what's that? 586. Only 586, less than 1% of the entire wallets that are connected to the NFT platform are relevant from community building, which I guess is interesting. Because if you want to build a community, you need to know who your stakeholders are and who that contribute to the community. And then there's a lot of others that are passive, but those are not the ones you want to build your community with. So we use that to basically make very focused, automated virtual onboarding packages so that they could become successful as fast as possible. So that was really good in the first case. So this sort of model would normally have taken a couple of months with a team of maybe 3 or 4 people, assuming you had data. In this case, we had a little bit of data, but not enough. It took 18 hours to produce this model with 1 person. So that's a sort of a step change in how fast you can actually develop really, really good automated decision-making tools using this API. Okay. That was finding one. Second, the moderation model. This was really interesting because the model that is supplied, if you're a customer of OpenAI's API, GPT, then you will get for free, you'll get a moderation model. But it turned out it's not really useful for gaming because in blockchain business, of course, you mint tokens and you burn tokens. Now, burn is actually violence in the eyes of OpenAI. Similarly, in the card gaming space, this card will exterminate your card. Exterminate is also violent. So we had an enormous amount of flags that were obviously because OpenAI has been trained on something not gaming and not blockchain. We then it was actually not very useful. And then spam is not picked up by the by the OpenAI moderation model either. And as you know from Discord, spam is important. So we basically had to retrain the model. So we took a data set from Kaggle, which is sort of a Kaggle toxic game challenge, whatever, lots of toxic messages. So we trained it for that, because also the other point here was there wasn't a lot of toxic messages, because Doctor Who, if you're familiar with the show, is actually a very, very nice character. And the people in this community tend to mirror the character. So they were all actually extremely nice. Really not good to have such nice people if you want to model, because if you want modeling of moderation, then you need to see also toxic stuff. Otherwise, the model will not be able to differentiate. You overfit it to nice, so we need to have some really toxic stuff. So that was quite fun. But we managed to find some real bad stuff on the internet and train the model with, so that we can prepare ourselves for trolling once the game goes into hypergrowth. That is actually very accurate. This model, like 99%, up to 99% accurate. So that was also quite helpful for the moderators, because they can then have a bot that immediately mutes messages that are considered toxic. You don't want to have somebody harass somebody else. In this case, we can then use this model to close down bad behavior. Here we are actually also calibrating so that we want to minimize type 2 errors, which is really damaging to culture. So like as written here, imagine you wrongly classify a non-toxic message as toxic. That's okay. In this case, you then have to do 2 out of 100 flags, which is not a lot of additional human curation. Whereas if you wrongfully classify a toxic message as non-toxic, it is very bad for culture. So you want to actually calibrate your model to be a bit conservative here on this dimension. So that was also a very fast model. It took, I guess, once we've done the other stuff, this was like a question of hours. Sentiment. Okay. Here also very little sentiment present in the data set. Out of 1,000 randomly selected chats, there was only 3 negative sentiments. And sentiment is interesting because you want to understand the temperature, what is the culture here? Is it good or is it bad? Are people happy or are they not happy? And then we basically asked GPT-4 to create negative sentiments. We also then tuned it over. So can you give me negative sentiments on the metaverse? Can you give me negative sentiments on this and this and that? And it was really, really helpful to give us a lot of data, which then again, we presented to the moderator team so they could curate it so that we were sure that this was actually representative of what it looked like. GPT was really good because if you feed GPT 1,000 chats and then it gets the context of how people chat in this forum and say, I would like to have negative sentiments in this context, and it will give you that. So it's actually really helpful data sets it creates. It's not something, it's just extremely rapid and really, really good. Okay, the contribution model. So this was really hard. We spent a lot of time working with the founders and the lead moderators saying, we came up with 21 principles for what is a good contribution. A lot of that is really, really difficult to model. So we found out of those, there were 8 tags that we could actually start to quantify. And this is a growth case. And this is based, imagine a guy who's been founding and had people suddenly think that this is a really good culture we have here. We want to be in this game. Trying to figure out what it is the founder does and then put that down and model it. So it's not as good as the other stuff because we simply don't have enough data, because this is an evolving science for this community, because actually, we haven't really thought of what it is we do. We know it's good when we see it. So we're now trying to basically clone that thinking. And then this is a first case model that is good enough to start working with. But you have to be careful because there's not a lot of data here. So overfitting is a big problem. So they've just, the suggestion here is implement the model as is. When you think there's a good contribution, please tag the data and we retrain the model bi-monthly, and then we will eventually get a model which is as good as the other ones over a couple of months or 3 months maybe. Very much like SourceCrate or Coordinate, but much easier to understand actually. This is a centralized model. I think SourceCrate and Coordinate have the benefit they are decentralized. Here it's actually a moderator team determining what a good contribution is. But it's not like if you have to count praise, or I think as other presenters in this Unconference will show, using AI to spot praise. I think this is more sort of humanly curated, but not having problems with sitting down and counting everything and counting the overlaps, because when people give praise, they give praise on 10 different people give praise on the same thing. So you actually still have to sort what is the praise. So that is not the problem here, but it's a centralized model. Eventually it will be possible to decentralize it once it's up and running and really good with a lot of data. Then it's much easier to basically automate the governance. So that was the models for Doctor Who. The sort of acid test of this. Can we move it to another gaming community with a similar moral mission? So we tried it on the Thunderbirds game, which is an ITV game with avatars, not trading cards. But it actually does perform quite well on the same parameters, except the contribution model is not working at all in this community. And that is because it's a very new community and there's a lot of people that are really gaming with stuff and speaking with things. They're not really contributing yet. So it's a very young community that I think needs to be formed. I mean, I'm not part of the community. I'm just seeing, since there's very little contribution. So eventually there's some learning in this community if it is to evolve as a sort of a community with a mission, that they need to improve on their contribution and what does it mean to be in a community rather than just a game. So that was me talking a very long time. Sorry for that. I would like to ask people if you have any thoughts on this.
I might have missed it in the very beginning, but what's the, is this like purely a research project to test out how AI could, do these things? Or do you guys plan on monetizing this? Is this a product?
No, I mean, this is a piece of code that was used because we wanted to see, can we use AI to automate stuff and support infrastructure and culture in the case of hypergrowth from 250,000 wallets to 5 million. This is, I think if you ask, I mentioned Steve Wolfram earlier, he would consider this very shallow, easy modeling. So the contribution is the use of AI to moderate. It's not difficult. I think Sequoia, the venture capital firm, they just had a blog the other day where they asked 25 AI unicorns on how they would use AI. And they are actually, that blog is exactly what we've been doing here over the last 6 months. So this is just a nice way of using a tool. The code will be open sourced. It's being implemented right now with this gaming outfit, and I'm working with some DAOs to see if I can find a mature DAO that is interested in automated governance that where this sort of modeling thinking could be implemented and tested in a bigger context. But for me personally, it's just a research project because I'm doing a PhD in this.
I see. It seems incredibly valuable.
Yeah,
once it's open source. Yeah,
I think it is actually. I mean, it's a step change in how you do stuff, which would have taken months and big teams earlier. Is a question of weeks and few people now. So that, but I also think that it's like if you do this on Reddit with 20 million chats a day, it's going to be extremely expensive to operationalize it with an API model. So you might just want to use OpenAI to train an open source model instead, and then run it on your own. So there are some sourcing considerations here, simply from a cost perspective. But the great thing here is you can do this project costs $35.61 in fees to OpenAI. Plus a 2-month subscription, which is $25 each, 20 something. So, okay, $80, less than $100, but that's actually very cheap, I think.
But like this, the training or the learning that it's done just on these hyper growth, like these are large population, obviously not as big as Reddit, but like say instead of DAO that's growing, is there enough data there to kind of find out the intent and Or do you think this is most useful for communities in hypergrowth?
No, I mean, this community is 1,000. I think the active community is a little more than 1,000. I think now it's actually 2,000 since we started the project. But I mean, up to 50,000, I think this is meaningful to use an API, depending on how much chat there is. But once it grows beyond that, you'd probably want to think about building your own model. So,
and this data is on gaming communities. So if the DAO was focused on some other things, it may have to sort of,
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a conversation with a particular DAO tomorrow about if we can pilot this sort of thinking in their community. And I think they have about 100,000 members and a very mature Discord, many channels and lots of mature conversations. But they want to automate everything, so they might actually be interested in this sort of thinking. But I've spoken with other DAOs that are very mature, and they think this is going to be really, really hard. People have become already institutionalized in how they do these things. So I think it's best to bring it in if you have an immature or young DAO, or a DAO that aspires to becoming fully decentralized or sufficiently decentralized, and use a high level of automated governance. There, I would think this is more useful than others. Other questions? I actually have, we had a workshop. We have a workshop. This was me talking. I'd like to have your thoughts, because what we did was we made a mirror board. Where basically what I would like if we could do, I didn't know how many we were going to be, but I have a long list of things that where AI could be an opportunity in governance. And what I'm struggling with a little bit is, and I would like your help with, is understand, and I guess the Unconference for reporting purposes as well would have your views on where do you see the biggest opportunities for AI in DAO governance? So in a second, we'll jump over to the Miro and also Google Doc, where there's a lot of examples. So, and this is a simple sort of transformation matrix. You've probably seen it before. You basically, if it has high impact and it's easy to implement, that's what we would call quick wins. If it has very high impact and it's hard to implement, it's probably something that can be called a must-have. Somebody calls low impact but easy to implement as low-hanging fruit. And basically the stuff that has a low impact and is hard to implement, forget about it, don't implement it, it's not worth it. That sort of thinking is traditional in terms of prioritizing your focus, I guess. So I'd like you, if you could then, I don't know if we're probably just going to be one group with now that we're not that many. If we could spend 5 minutes, discuss the opportunities we have listed, and then see if you can map these into this grid. And then also what's missing. Are there other things that are much more important that I just haven't seen from what we're going to show you? And then if there was many people, there was some alignment here, but I think we can do it pretty fast. I have an example here. So where can you use AI? Okay, so smart contracts, as you know, are part of the governance of DAOs, and they're self-executing contracts with terms of agreement directly written into the code. So opportunity for AI could be to help analyze and verify the logic of smart contracts to prevent flaws or exploits. That could be an opportunity. On the other hand, you could say there's an implementation challenge. So if an AI fails to catch a flaw because it is just an AI or a probabilistic model, it could actually lead to severe consequences. So that suggests it's rather a must-have than a quick win, because you need careful monitoring and really careful rollout, but there is a high benefit if you do it correctly, that sort of thing. So if I jump to this Google Doc I have listed, Eunice, if you can put that in the chat as well. So that what you just saw there was smart contracts. Then we have proposals in many DAOs. Any member can make a proposal. You could then say AI could assist in drafting proposal and analyzing to identify issues or conflicts, yada, yada, yada. Voting systems, similar way, tokens, treasury, constitutional bylaws, dispute resolution, access control, security and privacy, compliance, upgrade mechanism, roles and permissions, community communication, norms and values, and contribution model. These are basically what I spent half an hour with GPT-4 and we ended up agreeing that this was probably a good list to start with. So if we can jump over to the, how do I move this?
Hey, Henrik.
Yeah.
Probably you're just for now you're just showing the slides. Probably it will be nice if you can jump also to the mirror board so you can show it to here. Yeah. Don't worry.
I'll show everything here. Oh, sorry. Can you see this now? I just saw I've been talking to showing the slides. That was stupid. Okay, but this link that you will, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a Google Doc. So GPT and I developed this list of ideas, smart contracts I just showed you, and then proposals, voting system, blah 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 blah. All these opportunities. So basically, there's an opportunity and a challenge on everything. This is just a brainstorm with GPT-4 on where could a OpenAI, or where could AI, not open. I actually started calling OpenAI for closed AI because it is a black box. But that aside, where can we use AI? And then we have a mirror board, which is this one. That's the link I gave you earlier. If you are not there yet, then I can see Max, you're there. Simon +3, so you're, I guess people are here. So, and then we had made for two groups, but I guess we just need to be one group. These are just replicas.
We can use side A for doing the activity together. Yeah.
So Yenesi, you're an expert in Miro. Can you take us through how we're going to do this in a smart way? Or you want me to do it? Okay. So I guess people have the link to the Google Doc as well. So they will be able to see, okay, what do I mean, the problem I had here was smart contracts. There can be many opportunities for AI and smart contracts, and analyzing and verifying logic is maybe just one. So I was afraid here that if we have over in the mirror board saying smart contracts as the first one up at the top, if you could see my screen, there can be many opportunities. So if you could take a look at, I guess maybe start with reading the Google Doc here, which is 2 pages, so I can read it aloud if you want. I don't know what's best. Probably easier if you just run through it and take 3 minutes to run through it. It's sort of pretty linear. And then we go to the mirror board and start maybe creating opportunities, and then we can map them afterwards. Is that a way to do it?
Sounds good.
Okay. So why don't we say 5 minutes to read and consider the Google Doc? And then we'll jump to the mirror board in 5 minutes. All right. Okay, so I guess this was 5 minutes on my clock. You guys ready to jump to the mirror board?
Yep.
Okay, so I will share my screen and jump to mirror. So, I guess the way this could work was then to write additional opportunities you see, and basically just put them on post-its, and then maybe we can have a, since we're not that many left, we can have a conversation. Well, maybe we should just start with these ones, and then if you have additional, and I'm really, in AC, I'm struggling with this, I don't know, my computer or something, but if we can, does it make sense to basically see if we can plot these? We have, what, 12, 15, where we would see them on this grid. Is that okay?
Didn't capture what do you want to
Well,
do. My suggestion here is we can start like placing these stickers first
Smart
of all
contract.
in this in this graphic below, and then if participants consider appropriate, they can add extra stickers if you consider that there's a concept missing there, based on the list of opportunities that Henrik already shared.
So Max, you put on smart contracts on must-haves, and I guess why don't? Okay, so I guess I would agree on that. What anybody disagree?
I guess smart contracts, it make me feel like it's like pre-DAO, or I guess a DAO governance. It's like more blockchain, but less community, or less like I think it's a must-have too, but it's just an interesting thing that it's about, like, after the proposal's done, unlocking stuff, doing all the sort of the more blockchain stuff versus community, or just like more DAO specific stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the way I've been thinking about smart contracts is, I mean, if you go through the tech stack of a DAO, the smart contract, there's a settlement layer, an application layer, and a user interface layer. So all of that tech is relevant for governance. In the case, I mean, as like if you have, I mean, eventually people fork their DAO if they've implemented a smart contract they can't change and they want to change it. So I think it belongs to the governance space, and I would also think improvement proposals require new smart contracts. So I would think it's part of governance, but in that context. So I think, I mean, this is not just off-chain, it's everything. Where can you use an AI to help you in governance? I guess is how I've been thinking about it. But it's good feedback.
And it's a must-have because it's tough, right? It's like we want to have it, but it's tough, so it's not a quick one. Got it.
Yeah.
We agree that here we talk about contracts related to governance proposals, right? Like you will update such feature of your networks. All right. Okay.
Something that like jumped out at me or has been getting me excited is I just put community contribution models into quick wins. But like if we're able to kind of see who's contributing and who's not, within 18 hours of one person, how quickly can we identify the key contributors and then actually, reward them properly? I'm just thinking about the praise system, like supercharged.
That's also how I saw it. I mean, I think one has to be a bit careful, but I mean, having seen the prey system and how sometimes inefficient it's been, I thought this was also a sort of a mix on steroids. So I would, if the DAO community has a good idea about what constitutes a good contribution, this is obviously, I think, also a quick win. I mean, before this exercise, I thought it could have been a must-have, but with this assistant tool, I think it actually pretty cool.
Feels to me that roles and permissions and access control are not exactly the same, but connected. So I can imagine AI could be really good in like classifying behavior, like somebody's, proposing, somebody's commenting, at that level. And maybe that would also lead to some setup of access.
Yeah. You're probably right, yeah.
I work at like a little automation company, and we constantly talk about this concept of human in the loop, because people are so worried about like the automation, like if the AI identified, oh, it looks like he's a commander or he's a contributor, it'd be nice if like Max gets a message and it's like, hey, it looks like this. I feel like that could sidestep a lot of the issues, because I would be worried about the AI, someone figuring out how to game it and just getting commander level or something.
Yeah, I mean, we had that. Actually, one of the 21 principles we had was also a bounty for if you can game the social. I mean, all social algorithms can be gamed, and accepting that fact, we thought it would not be appropriate to do full automation unless we know it can't be gamed. So instead, we'd rather see it as a positive contribution if you can game it and tell us. And I think also taking from the source cred sort of style of thinking, it is a intersubjective. So use the tool, but have humans curate it until you're really, really clear on how it works. And in the case of this community, it's going to be undergoing so much change that they will need to adapt the contribution model continuously, depending on in which direction they're going and how mature each of the new games they get in. Like if they get a FIFA game in and the Doctor Who game is very mature, there's going to be different models across each sort of functional area. But for a DAO, I think it would be also, depending on how fast it grows, there will be new objectives. Like in a traditional organization, you'll change strategy depending on how you evolve through your sort of startup growth cycle, I guess. So, I think the pushback we had also from the community moderators at the gaming outfit was that we need human curation. And actually, I have a personal concern about the use of these models, because if everybody starts using them and starts posting what you could say is generated content rather than real content, then next time they train the model, you'll have increasingly overfitting. So the more people use these models in the public space, the more you'll have computer-generated contribution. And then if you start retraining it on the stuff it generated itself, you'll have, I think this was a paper that came out last week. It's now called model collapse. Initially, it was called model dementia, because sort of in the realm of thinking its intelligence, then you would say in dementia, it starts actually not remembering, and it gets really bad, because if it picks always sort of from a distribution where there's a most probable next word, eventually you're gonna it's gonna remove any outliers, which means minority opinions will disappear and everybody will become one and the same, and then we can restart the internet if that happens too much when they retrain it. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that is a scenario that's worth considering when you use these models. So I think we should have humans in control for sure. So everything has now been put into the grid. Cool.
Yeah, all the stickers were placed in the graphic.
Was there anything? Okay, this is very helpful. Thank you. So, anything surprising here? Who put the constitutional bylaws and compliance and all that stuff down in the money pits? You don't see AI being useful for that?
Yeah, that's me. Basically, by the same argument that you made, that well, I can't see, like, I can't say I can't see any use of AI, but also like putting interpretation of the law or like the purpose of life in the hands of the AI might be leading to like poor results in that sense, it seems.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned in the obstacles, for example, for the legal framework, of course, AI doesn't have access to all the precedents. And also, like, I enjoy this online like reputation tools. One of the uses of praise for me as a community manager is to understand that in general what interactions happen, because I don't always know what is happening, but so does AI, you know. So we kind of speak in Discord, and then I tell you something in Telegram, and AI won't have access to that, so he won't be as good in interpreting like what's happening. Yep. So I kind of excluded like this high level governance from. Sorry, maybe you have like somebody can argue to that as well.
No, I think that is very fair. Thank you. Okay, so I mean, I have sort of seen this. I had maybe hoped we could have more quick wins, but I also I see the challenge of using AI on everything, but it's the stuff that makes it where you need an executive assistant that is extremely clever and extremely fast. It really works well. Is there anything we have missed here, or do people have? Is there any disagreement on this mapping?
I would say back to the Max's previous point. I think it's one super interesting that like anything that's not captured, say in the Discord, you know, the AI will miss out on and then may misinterpret. But I also think it's like, I wonder if you could turn the dials on these things, like community norms and values. Like one, it could like, obviously we don't want to put like all the power in their hands, but it's like, hey, the community norms and values are like not cursing each other off. Like just do that. Like I wonder, because then that would feel like super low hanging fruit if we were just telling it to do like super basic stuff versus, hey, this is our type of community. Here's 100 rules. I wouldn't want it enforcing our norms and values either, but I wonder like if some of these things can be dialed up or dialed down, and then how useful they would be.
Mm-hmm. Good. Is there anything we're missing? And I realize this is a very short workshop.
I'm thinking about this kind of like onboarding guides.
Yeah.
Like some helper. I'll add it to the board.
Yeah. I mean, the conversations we had with the reality team here, or Doctor Who, was basically they wanted to have sort of interactive onboarding. So a channel for, in this case, the cryptos, or the fans, or the casuals. So the casuals, I mean, we misunderstood casuals, so they should also understand everything. But we didn't see AI in that role. We saw, well, maybe to help make some fancy 3D experience or visualization. So basically, it was more in the helping with cool onboarding rather than designing the onboarding. But I guess, yeah, you could say quick wins in that context. Correct.
And none of these have like the most basic use case of just like chatbot? Is there a reason why that's been like, we're just not thinking about it from that perspective? Like having it just in a channel to answer FAQ questions like Max, but like helper. Is there, we were just thinking of this, is that too simple of a thing and we're not using like data analysis? Is that outside of this realm?
I mean, I hadn't thought of it because I was a bit concerned with it being too random, at least using ChatGPT, because you can't change the temperature of ChatGPT because the conversational agent, if you see the Wolfram paper, it's actually, it gets really, really boring if you set it to zero randomness. So it's not going to be a very helpful helper. It'll be a very correct helper, but it'll be really boring. So I think it, but I can see where you have. I mean, the problem with FAQ, if it comes with a new response every time people ask it, it's going to be frustrating. So I just, but I can see some automation here. True, but I wouldn't implement a random AI that will come up with a new answer every time people ask. If you repeat the question, it just comes with new answers, and then say, "This is you just said something different." Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. Apologies, and it's like, okay, that's not very helpful. So, but okay. Anything else? Well, this is really nice, actually. Thank you for that.
Is there anything as far as, and once again, the generative aspects, to your point, can be a little misleading, but like showing things that are working, like, hey, like engagements, or like showing things that are increasing engagement or lowering engagement, or like keeping people around, or things that are growing the community or making the community better, whatever those metrics may be. Is these models now really for that, or because of the hallucination stuff, you don't want to trust it? Or
no, I mean, I think in the sort of sentiment, at least with, I mean, the models we've made in this case are all at zero temperature, because if you classify and label stuff, you want to be accurate and repetitively accurate. But if there is you could have a playground probably where to people to have fun could probably help a little bit on the community if you trained it on specific community stuff. I mean, I could imagine if you take a Discord in a mature DAO and you feed the entire Discord to, well, you can't actually feed the whole thing to ChatGPT, but you can create it. You can take some interesting conversations, and you can have ChatGPT versus ChatGPT have you can have fun, yeah. So you can actually have a room for a laugh, and because sometimes DAOs are not very fun, so maybe you could actually introduce the playground corner to increase community spirit, and you could then train it on this particular Discord or whatever DAO conversation and make it relevant to this particular exercise. As I saw actually, but you need to get an API access to Steve Wolfram's research lab just had an API access to GPT, so it can help GPT become more true, because his research lab is sort of a deep computational truth. So like has true coordinates of everything in the universe that they have been able to lay their hands on. So that could be good.
I added 2 more cards.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Can you take us through them?
Yeah, notification recaps. Well, we did like an AI hackathon in Give It Galaxy, and one of the winner was this kind of use of AI to summarize big calls. So like a call for like an hour happens. Well, in our case, like even Discord, you know, like once per week, if I don't have time to read every channel or something, but maybe it kind of understands what I want to track and says like, hey, that was this conversation and people mostly spoke about this. And then I will be like, not notified when important topic raises.
Yeah, of course. Sort of a state of the nation weekly update. What happened this week? Yeah, perfect. Yes. Good. And the other one?
Matchmaking reputation. I would paste it under like a hash, but we had this tool last time conference, story matcher, where people some people wrote stories and some people shared like they needed to classify the story if that was like close to them or like completely opposite or something, and that proved to be a great tool for building connections. So that's where I also see, you can be suggested with like top 3 persons you might want to, connect to within this community.
Yeah.
And that relies to reputation in the sense that then we need to collect, identify that this person is like a fan of that or this.
Yeah. Excellent. Great. Very good. I actually don't think I had any more. This was sort of, if we could get to this, I guess if I sort of should summarize this, it looks from the Miro board that there's quite a lot of quick wins and must-haves, suggesting that we shall have a big effort in implementing AI tools. One concern I have is if it's decentralized communities, I thought there might be a concern about being reliant on a centralized API. You guys have any considerations on that?
Well, again, we discussed a bit that potential evolution of all of these AI tools would go to some kind of distributed models and distributed data models as well. And we spoke a bit about data unions and data stewardship in general that might move to DAOs. So yeah. I'm even more concerned, like if you're speaking about like centralization aspects, what if happens if like OpenAI servers go down or something? This is one aspect, but another aspect is the potential manipulation with data. So like we heard about the Chinese communist AI, but like maybe, some other skews in data that could happen that we want to avoid.
I had a quick look yesterday on, I'll just share it in a link here. There's a list on Medium on, copy the link on open source fine-tuned large language models. I'll just actually maybe just put it in the, share my screen. Because this, we had a conversation amongst ourselves, how big a model does it actually take to do this kind of exercise we've done? And it is, the real value in this project was using a huge model to help us get to a result very fast, because there was not, the bandwidth in the community wasn't there. So this was a very much sort of to see how far you can get with analytics and how easy it is to inspire people to start using analytics. But I thought that actually this is an overkill big model for what is required. And you can see here's a list of open source fine-tuned large language models. This evolves continuously, of course, but here you have like 48 billion parameters, 65 billion parameters, 30 billion parameters, 40 billion, 33, 30, 65 billion. Llama is Meta's model there. These are all steep. I mean, these are much bigger than you need for doing the stuff we just did here. We could easily do the stuff I showed you here with a model that was like, I don't know, 500 million parameter model, so very, very small for this task, which is why I guess you can call it shallow computing in this case. But for the purposes of helping community, you don't need these big models, but they're really fascinating to use in order to train something smaller, so that you get the benefit from the big model and leverage that, and then you probably train an open source model and implement that as your standalone Oracle on a potentially decentralized cloud, so you don't get disconnected. And I think you also then want to keep a copy of your human stuff so that you don't start getting overfitted while you see more and more generated, fabricated chats. Cool. Thank you. I don't have any more for this. Thoughts? Was it worth your time?
Oh yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Good. All right. Thank you. Yanisi, I don't know what do we do now? Obviously, I'll send you the slides, and we have the mirror board, and then there's an unconference something process.
Yes, that's precisely what we can do. You can send me the slides, and we will share the recording after.
Cool.
This after finishing. So thank you so much for hosting the session, Henrik, and for everyone that joined.
And thank you for attending. It was great to get your feedback. Thank you. See you.